Paltrocast. Josh, how is your day going aside from, having to talk to me in the middle of a catch-up kind of day like today?
Yeah, the day's going great so far. Beautiful day here in the mountains. Crisp morning. Going to be a little bit warm today, but other than that, fall's on the way. A little groggy. Spent last night down in Salt Lake. Got to see Post Malone last night to kick off his F1 Trillion concert, or tour. So yeah, it was a long night, but it was good. He rocked out.
That tour is coming here in, I think, a week or so in New York, working its way across country. Do you get to a lot of concerts, or is it, hey, work, 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 and that was your one time out?
Well, a little bit of both. We have a couple of great venues right here in Salt Lake, and everything's really, close and convenient. And then we also have our Snow Park Amphitheater at Deer Valley that we host concert series throughout the summer. So get to kind of blend the two of play and work. So see shows while we're also, making sure the guests are taken care of. So yeah, we see a decent amount of shows every summer.
That's great to hear. Now, in doing some internet research on you, I know you're not originally from the Park City, Utah area. How exactly did you wind up out there?
Yeah, yeah. I'm flattered that you did some research on me. Yeah, I'm from Michigan originally, the northern Lower Peninsula area. Grew up about 2 miles from a ski resort,
Mhm.
um, and always wanted to, ski out west, and made that dream come true after college, and fell in love with Park City, and just never left. The first year I was here was the 2009, 2010 ski season. Met my wife here, and we made it permanent residence in 2013 after some seasonal travel.
So
Yeah.
it went from Michigan to rudely interrupt you, Michigan to Washington State to here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So when I came out, it was a seasonal position that I was in. And so I was here in the winter times, and then we went to a destination resort up in the San Juan Islands, in Washington State.
Hmm. Got it. My first time in, not that you asked, but my first time in Park City, I wound up at a bunch of Deer Valley kind of places. And my second time there, it wasn't hosted by the city, but we wound up at a bunch of Deer Valley places. And my third time there, we wound up at a bunch of Deer Valley places. So you basically learn that Deer Valley, in a great way, rules Park City. What was your introduction to Deer Valley?
Yeah, my introduction to Deer Valley was a great phone call, conversation, interview, what have you, with the recruiter when I was first interested in getting out here to Park City. That gentleman's wife was from Michigan, and they'd gotten married on the island I was working at up there. And he just painted a fantastic picture of it in my mind. And when I got here on property, all of his words lived true. All the people were as great as he said. And from day one, just feel like family being part of, the Deer Valley crew. The mountain's beautiful, the town's fantastic. So I guess that's in a lot of words just blown away of how great of an experience and special this place is.
My experience, overly generalizing with Park City, is there's so much going on there, but it's all kind of low key. In other words, you have to ask people what's going on rather than celebrities wanting it to be known that they're there. It's very low key that they live there part of the year, that kind of a thing. When did you kind of realize that there were all those hidden subcultures of Park City?
Yeah, just not too long. Maybe in town for a couple of weeks, you meet the right people, you try to engulf yourself with, the locals that are around and figure out like, hey, what am I not going to see on a website? What's not being marketed around? Where does everybody else go? And as soon as you start to get in there, it kind of snowballs. It's like, oh, you go here and here and here. So yeah, just not short time if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, looking behind you, seeing the Jordan jersey, the Wheaties box. There's a rumor or two that Michael Jordan's been around Park City. Just a rumor or two.
Yeah, yeah, he's been coming around Park City for a while. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he owned a home, if not on Deer Valley property, very close. But yeah, he definitely has skied at Deer Valley quite a bit, and usually around his birthday time. So mid-February is typically when we would see him out here.
And then being a diehard Van Halen fan, I've read that Wolfgang Van Halen's wife, she's a Park City person. So it's kind of like all these roots come back to Park City, but it's not really documented and spread. In other words, it's kind of kept like, don't ruin it for everybody. Don't tell too many people that we're great. That's the vibe I get.
Yeah, no, that you nailed it exactly. And that's kind of one of our things in our handbook here at Deer Valley is we train the staff like, hey, when you go in, you might see a very famous celebrity sitting at a table enjoying themselves. We don't approach and ask for photos or autographs. We treat them just like, every other citizen so that they do feel comfortable and they want to come here and play and, hang out with us. So yeah, none of that undue attention. And that does engulf around into the community too.
So back to you and back to Deer Valley. I think the first time I went, I stayed at Goldner Hirsch, which
Yeah.
I know that you have worked at and all that. Was that the first place that you'd worked at within Deer Valley?
It was not. It was actually the second place I worked at in Deer Valley. I had had other positions around the resort kind of growing in my career, and they were looking for a food and beverage operations manager, and that's where I stepped in there and worked with them for a little bit, and then did go back to Deer Valley formally. Golden Hirsch is it's a property on Deer Valley property, but it does operate independently. So even though I was taking the same commute to work every day and parking in the same parking garage, it was technically a different employer.
Hmm.
But then, yeah, COVID hit and a bunch of things kind of happened, as we all know. And I was invited back to Deer Valley proper, and that's where I've stayed.
You have a very unique job title. And the reason I say is because everyone's usually director of food and beverage. In your case, director of beverage. I don't think I've ever heard that before, that somebody's just director of beverage. Am I wrong about that, that's a rarity, or it sounds like a rarity?
I guess it might depend a little bit on the market. It is a relatively common thing out here in Utah because we do have some intricate laws that it takes a little bit to kind of swim through, and it can become a full-time job memorizing all those laws. So being, focused on that and not making sure you're not forgetting about something else in your day. You do see beverage directors quite a bit out here. Very similar to what you would see in, those larger restaurant organizations in the bigger cities that'll have like a wine director or a bar director. Mine just happens to be on the resort overall umbrella. So overseeing 16 different outlets and focusing on all of our consumable liquid assets, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic.
So it sounds like there's pressure on you to know your wine and your spirits and your beer.
That's true. Yes, it is.
That is extremely rare. Take the compliment here that you're a hardworking guy who has to keep his palate really refined.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, someone's got to do the job. Someone has to bring the homework home and do it. And I'm okay being that person for sure. But yeah, it is a lot, and at least for me, you gotta have that look at it as a broad horizon of, okay, I can't spend the whole time just focus on beer, even though maybe I love beer more than spirits or wine, or, you can kind of
Yep.
mix those three up as much as you want. So yeah, just staying focused on that each category deserves its attention, and making sure that you're up on the trends in all three markets. But like I said, the homework's fun, it's enjoyable. And there's a lot of people around that envy the title.
Yeah. The first time I was out there, the only on-site craft kind of thing that we really went to, and this is pre-COVID, was High West's distillery, which is an excellent food menu and all that kind of thing. But now I'm seeing there's all these craft beer destinations in Park City, meaning if you go back 15 years ago, Corona was a craft beer. Like not every bar would have Corona on the menu. And
Right.
nowadays, it seems like every city or small city has at least four craft breweries within range, a distillery, a winery, etc. When did you start to see the explosion in a good way of Park City original spirits and original beers?
Yeah, that was probably towards, the middle aughts, I would say. You saw, breweries and distilleries, like you mentioned, and even a winery located on Main Street here in Park City that, purchases juice from around regions that they like and do their blending on site and sell there. So yeah, I'd say those mid aughts is when it really started to come to fruition. You mentioned High West, and High West really kind of laid the groundwork for all of those folks because it had been a very, very long time. I'm forgetting the exact dates, but we're talking about multiple decades, if not into double-digit decades, since production of alcohol was, or at least spirits, were allowed in Utah. So when High West did their thing, got approval and proved to the state of Utah, like, hey, we can do it right and responsible. That really opened the door for all these other people to say, hey, we'd like to follow that trend. We'd like to have some focus on, the beverage and the alcoholic production scene here in Utah also. And yeah, it's really exploded, like you had said.
High West itself, in a good way, has exploded in that I think we were talking earlier about Post Malone, and he's doing a Live Nation tour of venues. I'm pretty sure I saw High West as the whiskey that you get when you go to Jones Beach, our local amphitheater. Is that the case out there, that when you go out, you just see High West everywhere?
Yeah, for the most part, you see it everywhere. They're an international brand now, so they are all over the place. And then also being a well-recognized brand around the world and in America, we're proud to showcase it. So, it's from my standpoint, and every opportunity I get to showcase a product that's my community neighbor right down the road, I give it a go. And I think a lot of the other operators do the same, have a pride in what they do. They are getting some competition as of late, like we mentioned. It's a growing category, and yeah, support for the local is really big in Utah. So whether it is High West or any other distillery or brewery, we like to put our best foot forward and showcase what our neighbors are doing.
And when I'm coming out there in a couple of days, less than a week, wow, time's
Cool.
flying. There is a beer festival happening. Did you work at all on curating who's showcasing there?
I do, yeah. So I've got a really good a very good working relationship with, if not all, most of the breweries here in Utah. Prior to us even having this festival, and when it kind of came to fruition, or it was a dream that we had, I would just kind of pull them aside and be like, hey, if we did this, can we count on you being a vendor and being part of it? And every brewery that I mentioned it to was just 100% adamant, yes, we will be there. We'll support you. Thanks for supporting us. Um, so yeah, I send an invitation out every year to a big email chain of all of them and said, hey, now's your time. We don't want this festival to be, the largest beer festival on the planet, because we do like the guests to have a really,
Yeah.
comfortable experience where it's not just shoving beer in their face. They get an opportunity to talk with the head brewer and ask questions and see all the labels and actually spend some time. So with that, we do limit the amount of tickets that we sell, and we also limit it's a smaller footprint. So we limit the amount of brewers that come on too. And my inbox gets filled up very quickly after that email goes out of people wanting to nab the spot.
Yeah. Well, going back in history and making it all about me, 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 me. Uh, the first time I was here, Visit Park City was eager to go, hey, we are more than skiing and Sundance. And it seemed like it was a struggling message to kind of get out there. And now, fast forward, because I think that trip might have been 2014, 2015, something like that. You fast forward and you go, so there's the beer festival that you're working on, and Deer Valley continues to grow. And Ty has his restaurants going, and the Park City Song Summit has come back for a few editions, etc. It sounds like you've totally surpassed that whole "we're more than Sundance and skiing" mindset, because I've never skied. I don't plan on skiing anytime soon. Yet I don't have that fear of what am I going to do for 4 days out there. So when did you kind of notice, okay, we've got so much more going on than skiing and Sundance out here, that there's no off season anymore?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think it goes back to the mid aughts there too. When everything really started exploding. There's been some larger beer festivals that had gone on, but they were
Yeah.
smaller in scope. But once it started going, wine festivals, and I feel like every resort in Utah now has some sort of beer fest. So again, that I mentioned snowball effect earlier. It kind of, once it proved like, hey, this is successful, the guests love it, it's good attention for the state and whatever, municipality or community that you're in. Everyone jumped on and said, hey, let's continue to grow this. And it seems to be, I see more and more postings of other events every year, which is great. Keep us
Yeah.
busy. Even though we have plenty to do up in the mountains in our beautiful playground. Festivals and parties are fun too.
Well, two more questions about you, and then I let you go. You ready?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
First one, when it comes to finding out about emerging trends within spirits and wine and drinks and all that, these days, how do you usually find out about it?
Yeah, I look at it from several different standpoints. I'm a little bit old school still in my mentality of I love magazines and things I can tangibly touch and flip through. So, those periodicals I subscribe to in all the different categories. Social media, of course, flipping through and seeing what's on Instagram, TikTok, all those things. And then pretty much every email newsletter that I can get my hands on, whether it's from a distributor or a reputable source in journalism on the topic, or directly from the brewery or the distillery or the winery. So I look at it, I try to get as much information as I can. No bias in the way I get it, as long as it's reputable and it's on trend. It's on.
So it sounds like a 40-hour work week for you would be the shortest work week you've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, in the office, maybe. Like I said, there's homework with the position, so
Yes.
a lot of it does come home. Flipping through those magazines, on the sofa is sometimes you absorb that a little bit more than sitting in the cubicle. Then
Yeah.
you're just like, oh, I'd love to get home to hang out with the dogs and see them, and then boom, magazine. You kind of hold on to that information a little bit more when you're doing it in your own, personal space and in your own time and everything. But yeah, 40
There you
hours.
go.
40 hours seems like a luxury.
Yeah, exactly. So being mindful of that, the last question is, obviously Deer Valley is just full of excellent spots to eat at, to drink at, etc. But when you have an iota of off time and it's not at home and not with the dogs and you're not at the mountain, do you have a recommendation of a place that somebody should go or a thing that people should see if they're not from Park City and they're just visiting?
Yeah, on like the food and beverage side, like restaurant recommendations or
Sure.
yeah. Yeah, so a few of them pop into my mind. Of course, we already talked about High West. They have a great local spot, their saloon right there on Main Street, which is accessible for everyone that's staying in Park City proper and maybe didn't rent a car or doesn't want to travel too far outside of downtown. So they're there. And then just down the road, maybe half mile, three-quarters of a mile is Offset Beer, which is one of my favorite breweries in the state. Connor and those guys are doing God's work over there, just fantastic recipes and letting the hop shine. That's their focus, is the hops in their beer.
Mhm.
But if someone's looking to travel, High West does have a beautiful spot just maybe 20 minutes outside of town with distillery tours and all that, so you can see it on a more grandiose scale of what they're doing and the production side of it. As far as restaurants, my wife and I are big fans of River Horse on Main Street.
Mhm.
Sit upstairs. They've got a beautiful chandelier, gorgeous dining room up there, great service team, nice wine list. So that's what we'd recommend. And you mentioned Ty Ricky Roy, a very good friend of mine also. Go check out his new spot down in Trolley Square.
Well, you just mentioned Connor, who I'll be speaking with on Wednesday, so I will send him your best as part of that conversation. But the bottom line is thank you for the time, Josh. Thank you for the information. And it just sounds like the sky's the limit with Park City when it comes to beverages.
Yeah, I think so. We're going in the right direction, and I don't foresee it slowing down in the near future.
Paltrocast.